Hello YouTube, Moji Smooth Eugene, another video from Exit Strategy. Thank you guys for sitting in again. Today I want to talk about, does the narcissist feel remorse upon physical injury or when they get hurt? When the narcissist gets hurt physically, how do they respond? And how do they respond in a sense of, do they feel that there's some stuff in their life that they need to make amends about, or change the way they're living their life? Well, the short answer is no. But I'm going to give you, and I'm going to expound on the reason, and within the reason there will be reasons as to why they don't or they can't. See, when we're talking about narcissists, the elementary things that we think about when we're talking about them, when we began to identify their traits, which is about 9 of them. They probably got 1 million of them, but the psychologists only deal with 9. They're very insidious. So often when we stop applying those fundamental truths about them, that's when we get lost in their behavior. Thereby, it either confuses and frustrates us for a longer period of time. It gets us out of character because we get sucked into the typhoon of the demonic, and we become unstable. We become the very thing that we despise. God said, don't repay evil with evil. Overcome evil with good. Now, don't get that twisted. I know exactly what that means for me as a believer. It means we don't allow those behaviors of the evil people or persons to pervade our inner peace to the point where we become consumed with it and we behave almost identical as the person that did it to us. And the Bible also says, he said, when you repay good with evil, or evil with good, it's like heaping hot coals onto someone's bosom in their chest. And he goes on to say, and he asked a rhetorical question, which is what he wants us to ponder. Who can take fire to their chest and not be affected by it? And that is how your kindness or your silence and your lack of repaying them for the evil that they've administered to you, that's how it feels when you don't give them back what they're giving off to you. That's a big part of when you're progressing and you're healing and you're growing and you getting better and you're elevating, becoming healthy mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. And so this bothers them because misery loves company. So when we forget about the fundamentals of what they are, they're grandiose, they're selfish, they're ego trip, inflated ego. I don't know them all off the top of my head, but I do know the behavior when I see it. And so you can give me a quiz on their behavior and I'll ace it. But, to retain the words and this and that, the academia, I don't get into it. And you guys know that, how we roll over here. We can kind of navigate you guys in an entry level of understanding this stuff by way of those titles and those labels. But once we get you guys on takeoff, man, yeah, it's autopilot. We can see it. We know. So this is a reason why they cannot feel remorse or be remorseful. They lack emotional empathy. They don't have what you have. You're an empath. You're a chosen one. They don't have that fundamental component that makes us, that balances us as human beings. They're unbalanced. This is why you call it disorder. They're out of order, as the judge would say when he bangs the gavel down. And this is what God is saying: out of order, out of order. And he is wanting his chosen one and empaths alike to get in order, get our affairs in order, get our life in order. We got a little sidetracked dealing with someone and invested in a person we saw as a genuine human being, all to find out that they were nothing of the sort. That was then, this is now. No matter how many you've ran into or how many you're gonna run into, this, in every instance when you come into an engagement or an interaction with these demons, it is a lesson to be learned in that. So sitting back thinking that the narcissist, like myself, I got hit by a car last year. Terrible accident. It's a miracle I'm alive and walking on my own strength. With minor scarring and some issues around my knee that will continue to be there probably the rest of my life. But in the grand scheme of things, I am grateful. I was grateful before this accident, and I'll forever be grateful because every experience in my life, I need to seek the best resolution that I can in that situation. That's a big part of my growth, as well as any of us. The quicker you embrace what is there to be gained from this, as far as it may not be a physical gain, but it may be an emotional gain, maybe a spiritual gain. For sure it's going to be a spiritual gain if you can seek out the spiritual advantage to going through. The Bible says, I walk through the shadow of the valley of death, but I'll fear no evil. God walks with us. So when we get out of a tight situation and we don't have any clue how the hell we got out of it, and we're not looking to God as being that one that intervened, that is the one reason why we're clueless. Because in your mind, which is very limited in the comparison to God and his infinite wisdom and his omnipotence and omnipresence, he sees things before they're happening. We're late to the party. He's already known what's going to happen before it happens. So when these things happen, we look to him as to helping us understand why they happened. We have to go to him to understand. He helps it make sense, if that makes sense. And if you guys haven't experienced that, I'm not here to beat up on you about that. I'm only just telling you by way of the experiences that I've had and how I've channeled God in my life. And that's the only thing that I would hope to do here when I'm talking in this fashion. So don't feel put off. I hope we all get there, man, because we wasn't saved for no reason, for no good reason. We were saved for a very good reason. And so these people, the narcissists, this is why when you're expecting, if they should happen to get in a tragic accident and their life is spared, let's say if they get a limb amputated or something, they'll go on. They'll either get worse in their narcissism, because now they'll become invalid minded to the point where say they have to do rehab, and then they might have a situation where they have to have a prosthetic arm, for example. We'll just say that. And this is not regards to everybody who's gone through these tragedies, because we're talking as this pertains to a narcissist. Just an analogy. They will continue to use that incident as a source to garner fuel, to garner sympathy, to garner attention, adoration, admiration. They'll be able to hype up their victimhood. But one thing they will never do is sit down with you in a living room much like this. And if you say for example, I'm having a conversation with them, say, man, I got hit by a car last year. I am just so grateful, to God to be alive. They will respond to you and say, they'll blame it all on the person or the incident that happened, which probably is a no-brainer if it was someone that caused the accident and caused them to be in that state. That will take the forefront of their conversation. And this is what most often they'll say at the tail end of this. If they had been rewarded some kind of compensation, they'll say this in a real sadistic way, almost like a coping skill with a lot of people who have experienced trauma. They'll say something like, at least I got a new car out of it. At least I got a house out of it. And this is something that, non-narcissists might say too, but there is a stark difference. A person who's a non-narcissist that might say something like this is because it's a knee-jerk reaction to their trauma. They're just saying something. They're just pulling something out of their head to medicate their emotions so they don't have to feel bad inwardly about their life being in shambles, if that makes any sense. But in essence, that is not the way empaths, that's not our verbiage. We don't look at in the grand scheme of thing of the tangible financial gain, if you will. And we definitely wouldn't utter that in a sarcastic way. It'll be more like, I am grateful to be alive, and the compensation that was given to me. And you see the humility in that conversation. The narcissist doesn't have that humility. This is why they don't have remorse. This is why they don't have regrets of what they did to anyone at any given time. Do they feel bad about what they did? I would say they do. They feel bad. They feel bad that you took them through extra measures to get to where they tried to be with you and destroying you. That's what they feel bad about. They don't feel bad about the fact that they initiated and attempted to carry out evil plans against you. They don't feel bad about that. They feel bad in the sense where they are just either dumbfounded, disgusted by the fact that you're taking them through so many hoops for them to leverage against you. You're too much trouble. And in them feeling bad, it frustrates them. And oftentimes, they'll cheat on you for forgetting the milk. They'll cheat on you for having to stay after work at your job and call them saying, I'm going to be a couple of hours late. The boss asked me to stay over. And you may not have anything that serious going on with them or planned, and you may just have dinner planned to go out with them. Instead of them saying, you know, sweetheart, don't worry about that. I know how your job is. It's unfortunate. We can plan that another time. They'll give you a dry, okay. And you'll be, I'm sorry. And when they hear that word sorry, they'll be on that phone. They'll hold you on that phone for probably 5 or 10 minutes to the point you say, oh, I got to get back to work. And as you're hanging the phone up, you can hear them in the end of the conversation like, man, this is always happening. When is this going to stop? You always staying late. You just should have told him no. They'll encourage you and wind you up, and it's to you so to the point where you'll incite hostility towards your boss, because what they're doing, they're programming you to be at odds with your boss. Their mentality, they're trying to recruit you to adopt their mindset. When you may have a good working relationship with your boss in your job, and you may not. It may be a stressful job. Let's say on the other side of that, you would have you have a boss that's very domineering over you, who most often might be a narcissist, and you're living with a narcissist. That's another thing. You come home to a narcissist and you're working for a narcissist, not knowing that you're dealing with narcissists. Boy, that's a double doozy. I know this because my job, where I worked prior to this one that I most recently lost or got terminated from, this was in pandemic. I had a letter, government job, had a letter to carry in my car in case I got stopped. That's how much essential this job was. It was still in the aeronautical division field. So dealing with metals. So the thing is, they were very covert at that job when they were setting me up and they were setting the table for the feast to poison you. And so it all makes sense after the fact, but they did not have remorse, consideration, or anything for anything in anybody. So much so, when this narcissist that I married, I'll always believe called or did something. Because I can remember one day she came to my job. She was down in the area with the children in the car. She's like, I got lunch for you. Can I bring it to you? And consequently, I said, yeah. She came down. I went out to grab the food. She was like, hey, can you just sit in the car and eat for a little while? They're always trying to get you in trouble. And so I said, no, I got to get back inside. I just came out now because it's not lunch break yet. And for some reason, that's not enough. They need to make you break rules. And I now know, looking back, she came down to my job for a couple of reasons. She had to scout out the joint, get a feel of the dynamics. She didn't interact with any of the co-workers because none of them saw her. She was in the car the whole time. And so I do believe in coming down there, she had to see what this place was. And I think maybe she either drove back down there or called them. I'll never know exactly how she did it unless someone comes forth and tells me one day. But it doesn't matter. Narcissists don't feel bad no matter what the tragedy. They can lose a mother or a father, and they'll use that to garner more sympathy and leverage and fuel from the people at the funeral. You'll find yourself hovering over the narcissist, and they'll never shed a tear. Their emotion would be so abnormal, but it would be convincing to the point where you'll say, man, they're holding it together pretty good. They don't give a damn about the person they're just putting in the ground or in a vase. These are the heartless, most heartless people that walk the earth. It kind of makes you wonder if their heart even beats like you and ours. Or yours and mine, you and ours. So that being the situation with the narcissist, you're not going to get them to be remorseful about anything. Life will not bring them to a point of remorse. Because let's go back to the fundamentals before I close. They have deserted their true self. They have no real self to go back to. That's where you have to go in order to get a grip on what you're doing. You're on a roller coaster ride to hell, living la vida loca, and you grow up and grow out of it if you have a true core self. You have something to revert back to. They deserted that true self at a very young age, never to go back and open that treasure chest of growth again. And so now they have no safety net. They have no alternative measures, like I said in my other video. They have no backup plan. I don't know any other way to tell you guys. And when they come back to you with those Hoovers talking about, I feel bad. They've saw a movie. They've mimicked something off of a movie or commercial. Facial expressions. These are master illusionists. But for the awakened, and the more you get educated by way of behavior, body language, conversation, you won't be able to be fooled easily again. Okay. That's all I have tonight. Bless.